I have waited to come here for a long time. It's been a long journey. I'm down here in Florida at the Extreme Accuracy Institute here with Gordy Gritters, someone that I have a tremendous amount of respect for and have learned a lot from. I'm taking the week-long precision rifle building class. Gordy, thank you very much for having me down here.
Yeah, great. Glad to have you.
Yeah. So what led me here ultimately was my desire to build my own rifles and shoot them. There's just something about that as a part-time machinist and as a mechanical engineer that really drew me to it. And it was your DVD that you did with Grizzly that led me to know about you. The more people I talked to in the industry, is intersecting paths kind of a thing. And what I didn't realize at the time is that you did this training and you've built up this business. What I wanted to do in this video was allow people to get to know you a little bit, to hear about your story and some of the experiences that you've had, how it's led here, and kind of what you do, what kind of training you offer.
Sure.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about Gordy's history, and then how you got into this whole precision rifle thing.
Okay. Well, I used to be I was first out of high school. I went to an auto mechanics, trade school for mechanics and got some basic mechanical training there. I didn't, other than building drag cars, I didn't care for auto mechanics that much. And then I was on the local police department for a few years and had mechanic jobs on the side. And I thought there's got to be something I can do at home to be home with the family and the kids more. And I took a home study course in gunsmithing.
And what year would this have been?
Oh, 1987.
Okay. Yep.
So about 32, going on 33 years ago now. And so that took the mystery out of gunsmithing. So I started, just doing general gunsmithing. And then at the end of the first year of doing that, I was working 40 hours full-time as an investigator for the police department. I was working 50 hours part-time in my gunsmithing business. And I had a guy working with me at the time, had an employee, and I haven't been caught up since. That's been almost 33 years ago now. So it's been good. I really enjoy doing that. Well, early on, so then I get into doing gunsmithing full time, and early on I got into competitive shooting. I really enjoyed that. I'm an old drag racer, so I like that kind of stuff. But it's I got into competitive shooting, and it kind of just goes hand in hand. And
what kind of shooting was that?
That was bench rest type shooting. Starting at a local club level. Then real early on, I got involved with running the matches. And then the Varmint Hunter magazine started up, and they started the Varmint Hunter Jamboree. So I started going to the Varmint Hunter Jamborees, and I wasn't, the first year I was there, I wasn't planning on shooting. But I told them, I run a bench rest range back in Iowa. I'm more glad to help you out, and you wouldn't want to be our range master, would you? So yeah, I'll be glad to do that. Well, then I was a range master for every Varmint Hunter Jamboree there ever was. And then I wanted to get into 1,000-yard shooting. Nobody in the whole Midwest did 1,000-yard shooting. So I started my own club. So I started the Iowa 1,000-yard bench rest club, and I ran that for quite a few years. And I took another guy, Lee Fisher. I took him in as a partner after the first couple of years, and we ran that until 2010, when the owner of the property that we were leasing passed away, but I'd been running matches for 20-some years. By that time, I was getting about tired of it, so I sold out and so forth. But that's kind of the history of the competitive shooting, that or how I got into doing all that.
So the first 1,000-yard competition guns that you built and that you shot, what chambering were those?
Oh boy, the first I don't remember exactly. An awful lot of 6.5 284s. That was late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay.
Was when we were doing that, and a lot of 6.5 284s, a lot of 300 Ackley improves, but 300 Weatherby improved, and doing a lot of those. 6 BRs. Did a lot of 6 BRs, and those really performed well. I shot one of those for years, and did a lot of those. And then as time went on, I've seen a terrible lot of things evolve over the years. You get into the 300 WSMs. Shorter, fatter case became more efficient. Those and became alive. I've seen the bullet technologies really advance, and so now and the more and more smaller cartridges. That's where the 6 Dashers come into play. Now a lot of guys are working with the 6 BRAs, the BR Ackleys, and so things keep getting smaller. But the precision level of those cartridges is so good, and the recoil is so minimal with them, so it's easy to control those very, very accurately. And the quality level of the bullets is just phenomenal with some of those, and guys have learned how to run them and shoot them and stuff like that, and so that makes it great. They perform phenomenally at 1,000 yards. A lot of good, 600 yard shooting, 1,000 yard shooting, and so yeah, just worked with all that stuff. I've seen a lot of that stuff evolve. I know a lot of the people that are involved. Know the bullet makers, the people in the industry, different parts of the industry, and I've worked with them extensively. Some of them over the years, and it's been a real enjoyable trip seeing all this stuff and being a part of it. So.
And you're working at the cutting edge, right? When you're working with the bench rest guns, it's always about just the most extreme accuracy that you can get. And when you're at extreme distances and you're trailblazing in the Midwest, right, bringing 1,000 yards into the scene, you're working with those people that are also interested in pushing the limits.
Oh, absolutely.
And so when did you start actually building rifles? Was it for yourself, these guns that you were competing with?
Yeah, way early on. I mean, I get customers right away, started wanting me to do, started getting into accurizing guns, way early on, back in the late 80s, early 90s, ready. And then started building rifles for them, and I really enjoyed that. And then, of course, I started shooting competitively myself, and then I held myself to a higher standard, and then, of course, building guns for a lot of the people that I'm shooting with, and so you just, and I'm real, I test everything. I test and work with things, try to find out better ways of making something work and things like that. And I still, to this day, do that. I like doing that, experimenting and trying this, trying that, and develop what in my mind, techniques that works really well for me, that I would get repeatable results and stuff like that. So that's what I evolved into doing, and it showed up on the bench rest game, which is really very, very close accuracy requirements. And I do lots of hunting rifles and all different disciplines other than bench rest, but bench rest is what I've been involved with shooting mostly. But I build rifles for all different kind of disciplines everywhere, and hunters and high accuracy hunters a lot with varmint hunters and long range big game hunters nowadays is coming on strong and stuff like that. But I like short range stuff. I like long range stuff. I like accuracy, period. But I've been mostly early on was involved more with the short range stuff, and then the majority of my career in long range stuff, 1,000 yard stuff. So
I think that's a good testing grounds for extreme accuracy. When you're just focused on that bench rest style shooting, you're trying to isolate all of the shooter variables and as many variables as possible and get those crazy groups, and then you can take the knowledge from that and then translate it to the other shooting disciplines.
Oh yeah, because all accuracy is accuracy. No matter whether it's hunting gun or a bench rest gun, it all applies. There's some variables that are different. Different stocks, different bullets, different things like that sometimes. But how the guns perform and flex and vibrate and the harmonics of that's the same no matter what you're working with. So.
So that was kind of how competition feathered into all this. Tell me about how Gordy's Precision came to be. Was that the name of your gunsmithing business, or did that come later?
It is. I started out Gordy's gunsmithing shop, or Gordy's gun shop. Well, then I got into more gunsmithing, and I was originally selling guns, and I quit doing that early on. I lost money that big time, so I quit selling guns real early on. I got into gunsmithing. Well, then I changed it to Gordy's Gunsmith Shop, and then when I moved, and I changed it again. I got to get a different FFL, so I went to a different business name, and then especially I got into more precision work. I got out of the general gunsmithing, and then a lot of people, they hear Gunsmith Shop, well, they come to me with all their general repair work, which I did that for years. I love doing that. I just don't have time. I can only I narrow down more and more focus on the accuracy oriented type stuff. So then I changed the name to Gordy Precision.
Gotcha.
Which kind of people hear that, they don't necessarily think gunsmithing so much, so general gunsmithing anyway. And so it's kind of evolved into that. So.
And so what I think is interesting about your journey, what you've shared with me and what I've picked up about you is that you're always looking to innovate on some of these techniques, and it seems very much focused around cause and effect, right?
It is.
You see a problem, right? All of the variables have to be controlled in order to get those groups really tight. And there's maybe your investigator background came in handy here, but there's always a little bit of a mystery that you're looking to solve. Why those flyers, right? Why this time? We were talking about a heat-related issue, getting problems that would only occur on the 15th shot, right? Like, tell me about, you're still constantly evolving your techniques.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Even in the last few years, we've talked about a few of the things in the chambering, dialing barrels and stuff that have changed. Tell me about how you initially developed those techniques and really created your reputation, right? Because it was around building rifles that were setting world records and all that. Tell us a little bit about that progression of starting Gordy's Precision and then the process of getting to this place that you're at now where you're building all these record-setting guns and that kind of thing. How did that happen?
Well, a lot of it is so much of just attention to detail. Is so that I'm not real profits oriented, but I'm very much results oriented. And like when I'm dialing something on a lathe, and I'll just keep at it till I'm happy with it. And it takes forever sometimes. And nowadays, I've done it often enough now, and I've figured out what some of the issues were that were keeping me from dialing things in quickly the way I wanted to. But early on, I started checking things like the chambering thing, for example. And I was dialing barrels in, and then I started noticing my bore scope. I got a bore scope that's really opened my eyes to a ton of things. Got the Hawkeye bore scope, unbelievable what I've learned after I started using that. So I started looking in there, and like the throats looked different. They didn't look as perfect as what they should have. Now, why is that? So I started checking and measuring. Everything checked out perfect. And one day I measured ahead of the chamber, up in the an inch up the barrel, and I had run out. Well, it was perfect right at the throat. Why is that? And then I started figuring, was there a way to correct for that? Then I started offsetting the outboard end of the barrel to allow for that. And it's highly controlled. It's sometimes very few thousandths offset on the outboard. That aligns it up now an inch ahead of the chamber is perfect as well as the chamber. When I started dialing in the 1.5 inches or 2 inches, that whole section up ahead of the chamber, getting that absolutely perfect. So I first was just doing it, using tooling I had. Well, then I started coming up with different, trying to reach farther in there. Well, I had to go to the range rods, so I started making range rods. And then I sent those to Pacific Tool and Gauge, and after I did the Grizzly video.
Yep. Now they're called Grizzly bars.
Grizzly
right?
bars. I sent those to Pacific Tool and Gauge and said, here, people want me to make these. I don't have time to make them.
Right.
So this is what I use in the Grizzly video. These rods, sell them, make them, sell them to people if you want it or whatever. But that's what people want, but they're repeatable. Because I tried all different bars that were on the market, and they weren't repeatable. I dial it all in, pull the bar outside the bar back in, and I had run out on the bar. It wouldn't repeat, so I could not get it to repeat. This I could get to repeat every time.
So let's back up a second.
Okay.
I think what's interesting about how you've problem solved this and innovated here is that you've questioned assumptions that people make, right? Because the old school way to dial in a barrel would be to indicate one end and indicate the other end, assuming that the bar is straight and the hole is straight. Well, you questioned that assumption, right? Because the drill bit that wanders a little bit as it's drilling the hole before the rifling is put in means you're not dealing with
the barrels.
a straight hole.
Bores have a curve, but it's not necessarily even a straight curve. It's a curve. It could be a compound curve. It doesn't matter so much. And dialing a barrel at both ends is a great way to dial a barrel in. You can really get good results yet. But there was issues with that I didn't like. What I didn't like was measuring at a half an inch or an inch ahead of the chamber and having some run out there. So I offset the outboard end, and then I started clocking the barrels because I didn't want the barrel to be curved to the right or the left, because then it would interfere with my scope. Sometimes they didn't have enough scope adjustment on that if they had a lot of curve to it, so I started curving it up, and it's very simple to adjust scopes up and down. You could even shim scopes if it's bad enough. Very seldom are good barrels bad. They're just a few thousandths off center. And you can see when you run the lathe, it walks a little bit. But I just index and clock the axle where the curve either goes up or down, not to the right or left, and mostly up for long range guns and up or down for short range guns. And accuracy-wise, I didn't really see much difference by doing that, but I could sure run into scope adjustment issues. But the big thing was I liked having the bore ahead of the chamber lined up to the lathe and to the chamber itself. And then I can pre-drill the chamber behind that, bore that true. So anywhere I can put the indicator in the chamber, the back of the chamber, the front of the chamber, the neck, the throat, that was all zero dialed in anyway, and I always dialed at the throat perfect, so that part was stayed. But now I could go ahead of the throat, half inch, inch and a half, and it's still straight. So that's what I like better than dialing it at both ends. Dialing it at both ends works great. A lot of interest gunsmiths still use that method. It's a fine method, but it does have issues that I didn't like, and this issue took care of that.
And it all shows up when you want to get those groups from 3/8 of an inch down to 1/8 of an inch down to below 1/8 of an inch, and I think the way I think of it is, the bullet is going to jump just a little bit as the powder starts to burn. And when it sets that engraving on the bullet jacket, you want that thing to be as absolutely running dead true as it can be. So you're thinking about where's that critical part.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, in the bore, and if you can get it lined up, ultimately, when the bullet leaves the barrel, you want it to spin perfectly true and not be, you know, cockeyed and wobbling or whatever. One of the many different factors. And some of them are important, some of them are less important. When you're building rifles for customers now, how do you have that discussion with them about where to set the bar? Because it's all money to them, right? All these processes and steps and all this stuff is stuff that they need to pay for. And it's partially a question of do they need it or not, right?
Yeah. It depends a lot on the customer and what they're wanting, you know. And I pretty much, almost all my chambering I do one way. Whether it's a hunting gun, Ventress gun, F-class gun, PRS gun, I'm going to do it all the same way. Because I don't like seeing some of the other stuff that's out there as far as, I'm not going to hurry things up and end up bedding with some stress left in it. I'm going to keep going till it's perfectly dialing barrels. I'm going to keep going, whether it's a hunting gun or a Ventress gun. I'm going to dial them in as close to zero as what I possibly can. I rarely use range, although Grizzly video I show me using range rods, I rarely ever use range rods. You know, and because I prefer just an indicator in the bore as opposed to on top of the lands, or in the grooves as on top of the lands, and that way I'm not sliding the bushing back and forth on top of the lands quite as much. It's just a little less possible damage inside of a barrel. If you don't do things wrong, I do varnish and polish even my reamer bushings. I polish and radius the leading edges so they slide back and forth in the barrel without scratching the top of the lands. And I look in there with bore scopes, I don't see any physical damage of it, but I still prefer to go in there, and I prefer indicating off the grooves as opposed to on top of the lands, because that's what's actually supporting the bullet. The lands are getting compressed into the bullet. The grooves are actually supporting the bullet, so that's actually what I'm indicating off, and I can't get there with the bushings on a range rod, but I can get there with my long reach indicator. And that's my way of doing it. That's the way I prefer to do that.
So I think it's interesting that you're sort of partnered up with Fred Zaglin, because he's oriented more towards the hunting
guns,
type rifles. And I'm hearing from you that it's hard for you to peel away from the bench rest and the complete, you know, the complete package from an accuracy standpoint. Fred's going to probably be more oriented towards reliability and some of the field results and, you know, some of the different price points and budgets there. And you guys collaborated on the book. And I've gotten that book recently, and that's been really helpful because it's kind of an update on all of your latest and greatest from the time when you did, you know, the Grizzly video. Tell me about how you got aligned with Grizzly. How did that relationship form, and then how did you end up in that video? Because that's a pretty notorious video. That's again, like that's how I got to know about you.
Well, Shiraz Bellotti is the guy that owns Grizzly, and years ago, already started building rifles for him, and he was before he even started doing it, he called me up and was talking to me about my method, how I dialed barrels in. So I told him how I did it. We got excited because he understood that, and he liked that. And then pretty quick he called me and says, and I had just bought a lathe. In fact, I just bought this lathe.
Okay.
And just a few
an upgrade from another lathe you have, right? The Enco lathe.
The other one was getting old and worn, and I was dealing with a lot of reamer chatter that I wasn't understanding at that time. I do now, but I was at that time trying to figure out what it was. I thought maybe the lathe was getting old, so I bought a brand new, much heavier lathe and stuff like that. But I was just talking to him, explaining all that I had done to that lathe to make it work for gunsmithing the way I wanted it to. And he said, well, he makes lathes. I said, really? He said, Grizzly, oh, really? Okay.
And then do you know how he got to know you? Were you in the same competitions?
He was shooting against, and I think I beat by one of the guys that I built rifles for.
Oh, okay.
They had one of the big national championships and stuff like that. Go. And
so he talks to the other race car drivers' mechanic, essentially.
Yeah. And he was looking for a gunsmith, so he called me up, and so I built rifles for him for years and years and years. And recently he wanted to take it in-house, so I went out there and trained one of his technicians to how to chamber barrels and stuff like that. So we're doing it in-house now. And over there, you know, as I understand it. But anyway, so he asked me what I did, if I would be willing to share what I did on my lathe. So I sent him a bunch of pictures and description of what I thought would work good, and he incorporated that in, and that's when what the Grizzly Gunsmith lathes came from then. And so they're good lathes. I've dealt with them for years. And
was this prior to the DVD?
Yes.
Okay.
And then early on after that, then I called him up when he was talking. I asked him. I told him that I said, maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea for people to let's put together a little DVD to hire get one of your guys from your office with a camcorder or something, and put a little information DVD together that you can give away or sell with a lathe, so people understand how to use the features of it. How to dial barrels through the headstock and dial things and articulate things and use the torque wrench and all that stuff. And well, he don't do things halfway. He does. He goes after it. So I went out there, and instead of some guy with office with a camcorder, he's got a full video production company hired to do it right. Well, that's where the Grizzly chainring video came from. So he did that, and we worked on one of his match barrels in that video.
Right. Was that 7mm Grizzly?
I can't remember now. I think it was actually.
Yeah. Well, for me, what was helpful about that was, like I started my YouTube channel because there was not a whole lot of good information about progressive reloading presses. Well, when I went around to go build a rifle, I really wanted to see, reading from a book. I had the Hanant book, right? Some of the older information that had been published. You really can't get a good idea of things from just two-dimensional drawings and diagrams and words. So the DVD was really, really helpful for me initially. But I soon realized there was a lot of stuff that you guys couldn't put in the DVD.
Oh, there's so much detail,
Right? And that's why this class, the class I'm at right now, is a full week-long class. And I'll say, I know at the end of the week, we're only less than halfway through here. I'm going to wish we had more time because there's so much to see, there's so much to talk about, and so much to learn. The DVD is great.
A couple of guys that come in this morning talked about when they went back to the motel last night, their mind were just spinning with all the details and stuff that they learned that they didn't think of.
Yeah, and most of us
like that, I get that a lot. That's kind of interesting. So.
Most of us have already chambered rifles, and I think that's good because there's already this working knowledge. But there's always what's that next step. For me, I'm going to take all the information that I learned this week, and I'm going to apply it. I think I have between 4 and 6 builds in the next few months that I'm going to be doing here on the channel, and a variety too. I got one with a carbon stock and a titanium action. That's going to be a lightweight 6.5 PRC. I'm going to go back to my 300 PRC full custom build and look at some of the stuff that we talked about, slugging barrels and looking for issues around the thin barrel profile, around the muzzle threads. I got another rebarrel of a Remington 700, which we worked on here in the class. And then I got a couple 7.62 x 39 builds, an AR and a Uintop Precision bolt action upper. And maybe I'll take these 2 topics and do it on the one build, and then the next 2 topics and the next 2 topics. And of course, you know how this goes. Now I need a whole bunch of new tooling as well. Right?
Of course. Oh yeah.
So I'm going to try and take bite-sized chunks and all that, but it's been super helpful. Tell us a little bit about all the different types of training that you do. So you do these classes.
And these classes, a lot of guys like you've got some experience already, but a lot of the guys that come to the class have very little experience. So I've got the classes and the information that I hand out and send home with the guys and stuff like that, geared around that for guys that don't have a whole lot of experience. And I get some guys with extensive experience and companies that send their gunsmiths down and stuff like that have extensive experience. So I work the class both ways. Different people learn different ways. I've been teaching this class, classes like this for over 22 years now. So I've learned a lot about teaching and how to get it across to people and different ways that people learn and things like that. But I get so often guys call me up, I don't know, I don't think I'm really gonna qualify for your class. I really don't have much experience with the lathe. I said, that's not a problem. I can teach you that. A lot of the handout material that I send you home is how to learn and practice and really shorten your learning curve. You're gonna have to go home and practice. No question about it. This week-long class we're doing now is not a hands-on class for the most part.
Right.
Because there's so much information we get across in a week, basically building a whole rifle in a week, plus doing a bunch of accurizing stuff on factory guns, which applies to the accuracy rifles. But it's very definitely something you can go home, especially with the step-by-step photos and step-by-step written materials that I've got, that you'll be able to go through and learn to do all this stuff. I'm available after the classes for phone. Call me up if you got questions, problems with things like that. You're going to run into things. That's part of the class, I just figured. Is the follow-up. And I get, sometimes I don't hear much from some of the guys. Some of the guys I hear quite a bit from. I got a lot of questions on this or that, help them get through it. And it's amazing how many times the guys have never run a lathe in their life, never really built a rifle in life, sometimes within weeks, man, I just built a rifle and you can't believe how good it shoots, you know, and I just want a match or this and that, you know, and I get that a lot. So it obviously belongs to or goes back to the person and how well they're willing to go back and work with the stuff. But if you want to do it, and if you're mechanically inclined, it works, because I've seen it over and over and over again over the years.
And this is the great thing, is that people don't have to reinvent the wheel, and they don't have to go through the 30-year journey that you've been through. Not that there's a substitute for learning on your own, but it's the fast track, you know.
Yeah.
Like I've self-taught myself a lot of things initially, a lot of this reloading gear stuff, and I wanted to share that with other people. You know, what's interesting to me about the class is it's as much about the Q&A during the whole process. The questions I'm wondering about, the questions other people ask, because everybody is having to understand the whole process. So it's about that discussion. It's about meeting like-minded people, because how many people in the world are really super passionate about chambering rifles? As a percentage of the population, it's a pretty small number. But you get a few of those guys together, and it's just really fulfilling and really productive, I feel like, to be able to share that experience.
Oh, yeah. I deal with so many do-it-yourselfers. I deal with a lot of gunsmiths, guys that are gunsmiths that do it for a living, but a terrible lot of guys are just do-it-yourselfers, hobbyists at home. But you spend many happy hours working on a lathe at home, out in the garage or in the basement or whatever, and building your own stuff, working on your own stuff, even if you never work on anybody else again. It's so enjoyable, and you can't believe the phenomenally good work that non-gunsmiths, the hobbyists can do. You know, some of the best shooters in the world, some of the best guns in the world are built by hobbyists. So don't ever think that just because you're not a full-time gunsmith that you can't do really good work with this stuff, because you absolutely can. Attention to details, where it all comes back down to again. So.
Taking things incrementally and step by step. You know, none of the stuff is rocket science. And running a machine isn't rocket science either, but there's a little bit of eye-hand coordination and learning that you need to do. We talked about using things like the machinable wax, or PVC pipe, or aluminum, or old barrel takeoffs. When I did my first barrel chambering, I cut both ends off, you know, like you typically do, and I took one and I threaded the tenon, I did the chambering, made sure I wasn't going to have chatter. I did the whole process, and I screwed up one side, so I had to flip it around and start over. And then by the time it came time for showtime, everything went perfectly. So, you know, if you're dreaming about building your own rifles, it's a worthy dream. It's a worthy pursuit, and you don't have to have top-of-the-line equipment. You absolutely don't. There's all sorts of things that you can do. You can do it on Grandpa's lathe. You can do it on a small Chinese-made lathe. You can do it on a really premium Taiwanese lathe. Like you are just getting this week, in fact, tomorrow, the Precision Matthews PM 1440 GT, the one that I have. And, you know, it's a really great machine. It's great even in a production environment, but you don't have to, you know, spend that kind of money if you don't have it.
Right.
I feel like.
Exactly.
Yeah. So two more questions for you I'm thinking about. The first one is, how, over all these years, I've seen the volumes of data that you've collected, and I've seen all the different rifles that you've built. It's so much work, it's so much attention to detail, and what I've learned about you is that you haven't gotten to the point where you've gotten complacent. You don't skip over stuff. How have you kept a passion for this craft after all these years?
I don't know. That's the way I am, I guess. The way God created me. But no, I just thoroughly enjoy it. And again, I get bored doing the same things. So that's why all these years, from when I started and I still to this day, I'm continually trying different things, testing different things. You know, just would this work better? So it's always a continual.
You're an innovator.
Exactly, and I still to this day do that. I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's mostly it's gunsmithing involved, sometimes it's shooting involved, and things like that too, and you know, different things like that. But far and away, the most of it is gunsmithing related, and accuracy gunsmithing related mostly, and there's different ways of doing things, and you know, going down into the, you know, well, the chambering method that I do and prefer is one result of that. That's probably the most well-known result of that, but there's lots and lots of other stuff. The way I bed guns, you'll find out more about that on Friday. Get into bedding, you know, Friday and Saturday, get into bedding rifles and hand lapping barrels, and there's just so much to things. And I'm a voracious reader. So I read everything other people put out, and if I hear something somebody's doing, I'll try it. I'll either like it or not, you know, or I'll modify it the way I prefer doing it.
Yep.
And so a lot of time there's more than one right way to do things.
Oh, absolutely.
I prefer this way. He prefers that way.
Yep.
I'm not saying his way is bad at all.
Right.
It's just great. But
might depend on your budget or what tooling you have available or whatever.
But I test and test and test, and if I can't get the results repeatedly every time with something, then I'll try something different until I do get that result.
Yep.
And that's what I continually work at, and to me it's just enjoyable, and I like it. So and I really like teaching the classes. I love I get some great guys coming through here. I get friends all over the world from these classes, you know, and people coming in, and I hear from people all over the place, and I really, you know, I enjoy that too, and helping them and getting calls from them, and people asking questions, helping them with that. And I like that, you know.
Well, I think what's really amazing about what you do is you're helping to make people's dreams come true. Whether it be Gordy's precision, building someone a rifle, and then they set a world record with it. I mean, that's good for them, and it also is really a good feeling for you, but also to empower people to keep the craft alive, to empower people to build their own rifles, and then to see the results. Brief story, Adam McDonald, last year's Canadian F-Class championship was down. He's the guy that does auto trickler. He does shot marker, really amazing technology. And he shot the 224 Valkyrie rifle that I built, you know, using your techniques. And he was just so excited about what a great shooter it was, you know, point and click and really consistent shooting. And he's just really into it. And to have someone of that caliber excited about a rifle that I built, it gave me like a pride of craftsmanship, you know, that is, maybe that's one of the things that keeps it interesting is you're always able to share that joy with people, to empower them to compete or to build.
Oh, I know. Talking about F-Class, that reminds me, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, whatever it was, 4 years ago, I don't remember exactly what it was now, but F-Class, talk about F-Class again at the national championships. I built the rifle that won first place in the open class. That was Sraz shooting it. I remember Will Kevin Chu was a couple of brothers that I taught classes to build their own rifles. They won the FTR class.
Oh, wow.
So I had winners in both classes.
That's amazing.
You know, and I've had that a couple of different years with that's F class. Mostly myself have been involved in 1,000-yard bench rest, but you know, I've had people set records and win these national championships all over the place in all different disciplines, and I just thought that was kind of interesting. That's
amazing.
I had, you know, my students winning stuff, and the stuff I was building winning stuff, and things like that. It's enjoyable. I like that, and I really like helping other people. Like just this past week, I had another guy call me up. One of his customers had set a big record and won a big match, and with a rifle that he built after taking one of my classes. And oh man, he was all excited about it, you know. And I really enjoy helping people get to that point. I've been there so many times over the years with my customers, and now hearing these guys do that with their builds after taking my classes and learning that stuff, and that's a big motivator for me. I just like that, you know. So
there's two moments I remember really clearly. One was when I fired the first round of 44 Magnum ammunition that I'd ever reloaded of anything ever. Yeah. That is it going to blow up moment, right? That's an exciting moment to hear the gun go off and you didn't die and you loaded the ammo. The second was the first shot I shot through the first rifle that I chambered, which was a 22-250. Yeah. Just that full circle thing, and of course I had loaded the ammo too. You know, it's a good thing. Another thing I think is interesting about what you do specifically is there's still a reason for this machinery, and there's still a reason for what you do and what you teach people like me to do. It's that extreme accuracy. When you're dialing in a barrel down to 1/10 of a 1,000th of an inch, you're creating a product that you can't do the same way with a CNC machine. Now, I know people that do hybrid approaches of CNC cutting chambers rough in and then finishing with a finisher, right? But they're still using a lot of the same techniques and the same overall philosophy. So when you think towards the future, you know, for yourself and for those of us that are trained to do this kind of stuff, where do you think this stuff is going to head in the next 10, 20, 30 years?
That's a really good question. I'm not a CNC guy. I've never been trained with that. I don't know how to do it myself. Never really had the desire to, I guess. I just it's not been involved in that. I really like the manual stuff because I can make it do what I want it to do. So well. and but it's slower. And I've been involved with some companies that have CNC equipment, with some individual gunsmiths, but also some companies that I've gone and helped with their programs, getting their CNC built into their program. And I guess one thing I see with that is, to me, is important, is build stops into the process. Partway through, several times, stop and check for chatter, if nothing else. Chatter is probably the biggest thing you're going to run into with some of the stuff. Fitting in, do things really stay dialed in as perfect as you think they are? Not always. Sometimes you think everything's perfect. Sometimes things move on you a tiny little bit. And I'm talking tiny little bit sometimes. But when those things happen, if you don't catch it early on, it just magnifies the problem as you get toward the end. And these 5R barrels so prone to chatter, reamer chatter, stuff like that. You run 6 flute reamers typically with 5R barrel, 5 landing groove barrels, whether it's 5R or 5 straight, don't matter. Very, very tendon, very much pro. You're gonna see it tomorrow. We get into chambering tomorrow. You're gonna see that. You're gonna see 5R, what can happen. Almost always you're fine. You stay ahead of it, but it's there. We'll pick it up with an indicator, with a sensitive indicator. You'll pick it up almost every time.
It occurs to me that even stepping back from CNC to production manual machining, if you're using a pressure flush system and you're doing more or less a continuous plunge all the way to the last bits, you're skipping over some of those checks, right?
It's quick, but even the guys that do that, those work. They'll speed you up, but to me they slow me down. Because I stop and check, but then you got to clean all the oil out of there, or that migrates into your indicators. And stuff like that. So myself, I don't use that, but for more production use, it works really good. But at least once or twice, stop and measure for chatter. I would tell guys, measure for chatter halfway, and or the very first cut you make, check for chatter. That's a very prone to start having chatter when the reamer first starts into the hole. If it's going to start, it can start then. Halfway through, or whenever your throat gets into your throat, stop and check there, because that's very much a prone, chatter-prone problem. And then maybe 3/4 the way in, check it again. At least do those 3 checks. Check for chatter, check for run out. As long as everything's fine, then continue on. You'll be okay. At least take time to do that. But that's going to slow you down. But to me, it's worth every minute it takes. So
I think the consistent theme I'm seeing come together here is there's no substitute for taking the time to do quality work. And whether it be speeding up with pressure flush or going all the way to CNC, or these huge machines at the rifle OEMs that just stamp this stuff out all day, you kind of get what you pay for. And if you want to isolate and remove all of the variables with a rifle, it's just going to take time. They haven't invented a way to bed rifles at the factory, right? The way that you do it when you do a custom rifle, and a rifle is a good investment.
Exactly.
So more classes, more custom rifle builds. You're not tired of it yet?
No, not at all. I'll probably never retire. Until I get too old to move, I guess. But no, and we recently moved to Florida, and part of that was to get out of the snow country in the wintertime, because I do way more classes in the wintertime. I do classes year round. I do lots and lots of private classes. I do tons of private classes. All the time, 1, 2, 3, 4 days at a time. Somebody comes down, and then that is hands-on stuff. You can work on your own project. That is hands-on.
And you
classes.
can go to people.
I can go to people. Travel to their shops. I do that occasionally. But snow up in the upper Midwest, of course, after dealing with snow for many years, you get tired of it and burned out on it. But it was really difficult in classes. I sometimes had to stop classes, or people couldn't get there. If they're stuck in a motel because the streets are blocked with snow, and they got we'll lose a day or two of that. And I just get tired of that too. And plus my wife and I we're adventurers. We like, so we always liked Florida, so we decided to move down here. So I decided maybe that would be a good move for my classes to come down here. That way it's better year round. I thought the summers would be so bad here, but really it's not as bad here as it is in Iowa. as far as heat and humidity.
Because the ocean keeps it temperate, right?
The ocean's 2 miles from here, across the way, a mile and a half, maybe something like that. So real temperate here. It's humid in the summertime. It's not bad, but it's you might have a hurricane.
Right. There's always something.
A little different than a tornado, I guess, what we're used to, or blizzards. But no, so I thought it would be a good move to do and start concentrating more on my classes. So as time goes on, I'm still building rifles and doing gunsmithing and accurizing stuff and stuff like that. But as time goes on, I really want to do more with the training. With the classes and with training and stuff like that. So.
Well, I think if you want to build a rifle, if you want to build a business building rifles, I think it's it's really a way to fast track the whole experience. You know, the hands-on learning and the skills that you can learn attending a class like this, and you know, maybe start with your book, maybe start with DVD or whatever, and then come here, you know, because then you're kind of already mentally ramped up. I would definitely highly recommend that. So if you want to know more about the classes, just click on that link in the video description for Extreme Accuracy Institute. If you want Gordy to build you a rifle, Gordy's Precision, again, links in the video description. And I'm looking forward to sharing information and collaborating and hanging out more in the years to come. So I really appreciate your friendship.
You bet.
Yeah, thank you for coming here on the channel. I appreciate it, Gordy.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so first thing, make sure you're subscribed with notifications because I got more content from the class coming up. We're going to talk about some more stuff here on camera. I got more rifle builds coming up. I'm going to be a busy guy here for a long time. And if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Until next time, happy shooting and happy reloading.